sense of this story as a springboard into the good news of Jesus, we have to understand the context. We have to remember that one of the critical entries in Israel's family Bible is where they record their decision to become a king-led nation. So we have to back up all the way to the era of the Judges to begin to understand the events of 1 Kings 21. Now like most vocations in that age, the prophetic role of judge was usually passed down from father to son. But the next to last judge, Eli, has sons who grow into reckless, unprincipled rogues. They're neither fit for nor interested in following in their dad's footsteps. Some years earlier, though, God had already provided a successor, a child named Samuel, whom Eli raises, teaches, and grooms for the vital work of helping Israel to discern where and how God is at work among them. Now, after Eli's death, Samuel inherits both the status of Eli's good son and the role of judge for Israel. And he commits himself to this inheritance, heart, soul, mind, and strength. Some years later, Israel takes stock of their situation. They remember what had happened with Eli's sons, and they see that even Samuel's sons have become liars and cheats. Feeling an acute insecurity in their changing and increasingly violent world, the Israelites approached Samuel. We want a king, they say. We want to be like all the other nations of the world. Give us a king. Deeply troubled, wounded even, Samuel retreats to God in prayer. What's going on? Now he says, don't take this personally. Remember, it's me they're rejecting, not you. In fact, it's been like this ever since I rescued these ingrates from Pharaoh so many generations ago. It's in every way they know how my people have tried to recreate Egypt. They've tried to get back to the way they imagined things were for their ancestors. They romanticize Egypt as a place where there was a chicken in every pot and a donkey in every barn. But they forget they were the donkey in Pharaoh's barn. Anyway, try to talk them out of it, says Yahweh. Warn them about all the ways a king will use and abuse them. If they insist, go ahead and grant their request. Give them a king, but please, Samuel, choose carefully. Try to find someone with some capability for leading the people in ways of faithfulness and wholeness, ways of remembrance and hope. Soon enough, Saul is anointed king. He turns out to be less than capable. Then comes David. Great King David, a good king. Now he's an adulterer and a liar and a murderer perhaps, but all in all, that's about as good as human kings get. Things never really get better. Just as God and Samuel predicted, Israel's kings become one major disappointment after another. This litany of royal failures makes Old Testament professor Walter Brueggemann conclude that the title of the two books chronicling Israelite kings should have a question mark at the end of it. So it should read, 1st and 2nd Kings. Things seem to hit rock bottom with the ascension to the throne of that pouting coward Ahab. Now, we learn a lot about Ahab from his choices of brides. In the land of Oz, that is Israel, Jezebel is the wicked witch of the West. She embodies evil. Both 1st and 2nd Kings present her as a kind of Machiavellian psychopath, someone for whom her own selfish ends justify whatever means she employs. So when Jezebel finds her husband lying on his bed in full-blown sulk because some peasant won't sell him his vineyard, she sneers in disgust. And you call yourself the king. Get up. Go eat supper. You'll need some energy to take care of your new field. I'll get it for you. You know what happens? Bridezilla hires a couple of men who take after the sons of Eli and Samuel. They're men without scruples. Really, they're mercenaries, aren't they? They're men who will offer their loyalties, even as assassins, to whatever king makes the highest offer. So Jezebel calls this fast and then sees that two scoundrels are invited, and they slander Naboth. They accuse him of cursing God and country. And because human cultures tend to lose the distinction between those two, Naboth is very quickly convicted and stoned to death. And Jezebel goes in and says, Ahab, now King Milksop, go claim your new field. Naboth is no longer a problem. It's interesting, back in 1 Samuel 8, Samuel outlines all the problems that Israel will experience with kings. And smack in the middle of the list, he says, he will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive orchards and give them to his courtiers. Samuel is long gone by Ahab's time, but those with memory, those with imagination will hear the ancient judge sigh and say, we told you it would come to this. Don't be surprised. Just persevere. Be faithful to Yahweh, who is still your faithful and loving God, the one who will redeem even this. I think Naboth heard Samuel's voice. I think he knew what it meant to love and remain faithful to Yahweh. Remember his response to Ahab's request to purchase the vineyard. I mean, Ahab doesn't try to throw his kingly weight around. Not at all. Ahab tells Naboth that he'll give him a better plot in exchange for this vineyard. Or, if Naboth prefers, fair market value. But being a man of faithful imagination, a man of spiritually grounded identity, Naboth says to Ahab, "Oh, the Lord forbid that I should give you my ancestral inheritance. If I trade away my land," says Naboth, "I trade away myself. I sell my soul." For the Israelites and for most pre-industrialized cultures, the land is an identifying force. Over the last 200 years or so, industrialized nations have viewed the land as something more or less antithetical to God. You know the language, God and heaven, we say, are up there in the sky. And hell, old scratch, and everything that is not God, where is it? In the ground. So today's kings, such as they are, like to tell us the earth doesn't matter, land doesn't matter. It's just dirt and rock. Preserving it is wasteful. So mine it, drill it, frack it, throw whatever chemicals on it you must in order to make it to produce, because Jesus is coming soon. It just doesn't matter. An ancient understanding of creation, especially that rich tradition of the Celtic Christianity, invite us to see the land as something that bears the very fingerprint, the breath and voice of God. Aware of this, Naboth stands grounded in the land, in the earth. He's rooted, solid as a rock. But he'll be cut down for his faithfulness. But hasn't this story been remembered for thousands of years? So he's neither an anti-government reactionary nor a Greenpeace activist. Naboth, in his refusal to part with his ancestral land, affirms the holiness of place, holiness of belonging, community. He claims the eternal gift of identity in God. He won't relinquish. The evil ways of Ahab and Jezebel grab our attention, but Naboth's king-shortened life of faithfulness continues to whisper to us the word of the Lord. So for us, whether by a nation or a denomination or an alma mater or a political party or a sports team or some special interest or any other king that demands our ultimate loyalties. Aren't we constantly bombarded with temptations to unland ourselves, to sell our identity in the living God? A little more context. After being delivered from Egypt, finally settling into Canaan, God, through Aaron, the first priest of Israel, divides the land among 11 of the 12 tribes. Now this storied land grant continues to influence today's violence in the Middle East. And to me, part of the problem seems to be a convenient ignorance of metaphor. See, God grants a specific land to Israel at a crucial point in her history. It happens just as this nation begins to transition from being a wandering, nomadic people into a more settled, agrarian culture, a culture in need of more stable, permanent structures of governance and authority. But you see, this is still the Creator God, the one who pronounces all things good and charges the uniquely God-imaged humankind with stewardship of the creation. When Israel becomes a settled nation, God's gift of land is a way to say, okay, you're going to stay put now. But remember, I have created the entire earth. So this plot of ground beneath you, with you, this plot of ground represents the whole earth to you. Caring for this land and caring for all the people who live in it and travel through it bears witness to your love for me, your love for your neighbor, and your love for the entire earth. Aldo Leopold, mid-20th century naturalist from Wisconsin, and he wrote a wonderful little book called The Sand Hill Almanac, observance of nature in that part of it, on his farm up there in Wisconsin. And Leopold says this, he says, the earth is a community to which we belong, rather than a commodity belonging to us. Now, remember, God divides the land 11 ways, but there are 12 tribes, aren't there? Perhaps to emphasize metaphor, perhaps to try to mitigate the conflicts that granting specific land will almost surely trigger, God leaves one tribe out of the land grant. The Levites, the priestly tribe, they get no land. They get something different. Numbers 18:20, I'm reading from the Message version. God said to Aaron, you won't get any inheritance in land, not so much as a small plot of ground. I am your plot of ground, says God. I am your inheritance among the people of Israel. The priestly tribe gets no land because they serve as a constant reminder to Israel that true landedness is found in God. So you see, there's something Levitical, there's something priestly about simply being made in God's image. Humankind's primary inheritance is God. We are grounded in God. To use Paul Tillich's phrase, we are grounded in the ground of being. We are grounded in love, in grace, in forgiveness, in communion, in joy, in pain, in memory, in hope. So how we love our neighbor and how we love the land, both of these things reveal our love for and our identity in God. Now in Jesus of Nazareth, God becomes flesh, right? Through Jesus, God demonstrates what it looks like to live as God-grounded creatures. In Jesus' love of all creation, we hear God saying to all the kings of the world, the earth and all that is in it is mine. I love it in ways you just don't understand. To the extent that you lead with love and compassion, you may have some success, but when you turn people and land into means toward your own ends, commodities to be used, all creation will suffer, and you will fail. And because he lives faithfully as God with us, Jesus, like Naboth, lives a king-shortened life. But he also lives as a true God-grounded Levite. Someone who may have no plot of land, but someone for whom the earth itself is home, and someone for whom all human beings are brothers and sisters. So our calling as followers of Jesus is to live as Levites in and for the world, to live deeply rooted in God. All the various Jezebels and Caesars and Pharaohs would have us believe that only by becoming their subjects will we know fulfillment and contentment and safety in our lives. But as followers of Jesus, it is our prophetic vocation to say, with all the grace of God-grounded love, no. God forbid that we give you our ancestral inheritance. Wherever we live, whatever we do, we belong to God. And so does all creation. So while we gladly, generously share ourselves, we will not be unabandoned by you. Brothers and sisters, before you belong to anything else or anyone else, you belong to God. And nothing else can love you, nothing else can claim you, or name you, store you like the living God, and nothing can separate you from the love of God in Christ. So I hope it feels a little better to say this. Thanks be to God.